Okay. All right.
Okay.
So you all got the minutes from our November meeting. Anybody asking for any corrections, additions, changes?
Anybody
Okay.
want to move the minutes or have corrections?
I guess so. Move.
Not me.
Anybody second?
I second.
Second.
Okay.
Dolores.
I was waiting for you, Mark. You're usually pretty good about this role.
Had to get myself off mute.
All right. So then let's say they were accepted. Um, let's see. We have, okay, we have, oh, Jamie's finishing her lunch. So we're not going to start with her. We'll let her finish her lunch.
All right, we'll let her
I
finish
can.
her.
Oh, you
I'm
done?
here.
Okay. Well,
I can take a break.
then go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Oh my gosh, it's the end of the year. I don't have any real big news for folks other than we now have put in our online calendar all of the upcoming meetings and committee meetings for next year with the links. So for things like our Council on Homelessness meetings and our bigger community meetings like COC Learning Hubs and whatnot, that's now all on, and I'll drop the page and the link in the chat here. But we now have them all sort of in a Google Calendar that you can go and access. And we're working on a Word document that will have all that information about the different kinds of meetings and the sort of schedule of those. Other than that, I don't have any big news other than it's now public that we are going to be keeping our shelters, the hotel programs that are sheltering people open until at least through June. So I know other communities have been having, concerns and closing those programs down, and we have enough funding and have built it so that we can keep going through June at least. And those folks are prioritized for getting housed first as well.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
At least some good news. Thank you. Anything else, Jamie?
Doug's holding his hand up.
Oh, Doug?
Yeah, I have something to add to that. At the last meeting of this task force, we reported, because there are more than one person involved, about the new Racial Equity Action Lab. And we promised to give regular updates to this task force. Since it's not on the agenda separately, the most likely place to put it is here, because it's so closely associated with the county's homeless program. For people who weren't at the last meeting, I'll just give a quick description of what it is. So the Racial Equity Action Lab is a regional initiative organized, I guess the chief organizer is BARHI, Bay Area Regional Health Inequities Initiative. And there are others involved in organizing it, but there are several counties who have cohorts all working together kind of once a month towards the goals. And the Contra Costa cohort is probably the largest with about 20 people, and very heavily represented in that 20 people are the county's homeless program in the person of Lavana Martin and two of her staff leaders, plus Jamie as staff to the Contra Costa cohort. So really 4 people from the Health Housing Division, plus there are 6 members of the Council on Homelessness, including Leslie Gleason and me, who are part of that cohort. And the goal is to work together regionally and separately as a county to come up with specific initiatives by May that would help to advance the cause of reducing racial disparities among the homeless population. So that's a brief summary of what it's all about, and we really haven't made any significant progress yet. We've just taken a look at some data, and the next step is to try to come up with some strategies.
Okay.
Anybody else involved in that want to comment? I don't see Leslie. Of course, Jamie's here.
No,
I was just
Leslie's
gonna
not
add
here.
that, I know Hector's in and has been really helpful in helping us also add some more people with lived experience into the cohort so that it's not just county folks and professionals working on this issue, but we actually have people with lived experience that are part of the thinking.
Okay,
Yeah,
Um,
thank you for mentioning Hector. In fact, the entire staff of the Ensuring Opportunity Campaign is part of that cohort. That's Hector and Mariana Moore.
All two of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah,
well, Hector is coming up shortly. We have Shelter Inc. I guess Julie's not here yet, so we'll go to Ronnie with East Bay Housing.
Hi, I don't have much to share this time around. Apart from that, we are co-sponsoring a faith-rooted organizing training for January 8th and 9th. A flyer is coming, and so is a registration form.
okay.
But it's being put on by Bay Resistance, eBase, and a couple of other organizations.
Okay,
And EVHO is to be a part of it.
all right. Thank you. Hector, are you able to join us via phone, or do you still have connectivity issues?
I have some connectivity issues. Would it be okay to push mine a little bit further back? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay, let's see then. I don't see Gabriella. Is she here?
Hi, I'm actually stepping in for Gabby this week. She is excitedly doing a living together agreement right now. So a match is happening as we speak, which is exciting. But yeah, I will be delivering our update, home matches update for this month.
Okay.
All right. So for home matches November numbers, our inbound inquiries for this month are 29. So definitely a big, yeah, definitely a big uptick. And we also started relying more heavily, on posting on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist this month. And so we had 30 online inquiries through Facebook and Craigslist. Unfortunately, even though we're getting a lot of inquiries, those aren't translating into a lot of intakes. So we only had 3 participant intakes this month, in the month of November. We had 0 matches in the month of November, but it looks like we're going to probably have 2 or 3 this month. So that's pretty great. Home providers that became active, month of November 4, and active home seekers 5. And kind of as just like a year in review, since January of 2020, we have now made 15 matches in Contra Costa County, with 1 more being made today and potentially 1 more on the horizon, which is great. We're also doing our quarterly check-in with all of our matches to ensure that things are going well, see if any support is being needed. As of right now, those are all going well. People seem to have settled into, a quarantine routine. And then, as always, we are in need of more home providers. So if you have anyone looking for a housemate, please let them know about our program.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Then we can actually move on to the presentation for tiny homes. I think that's with Donna and Cheryl, right?
Yeah, thanks so much, Christoph. So, is it okay? Can I share my screen?
Hold on a second.
I think someone has to enable it.
Yep, now you can.
Okay, so I have I'm not going to go through the whole presentation, but I just wanted to have share with you some highlights because I know that your agenda is really packed. So let me just share this. So I'm presenting on behalf of the Walnut Creek Homeless Task Force. And we have a subcommittee. It is called the Emergency, hold on a second, Emergency Shelter and Housing Subcommittee. And the reason we did that is because we understand that the solution to homelessness is housing that people can afford, and predominantly permanent supportive housing for some of the homeless that have experienced chronic homelessness. So we, as a task force, just real briefly put together some goals. We did this last spring, and I did include those on the slide, and I'll send it to Jan. You can send this out if you wish. It was also part of the annual forum that we did. But basically, there was a discussion about we need to do more permanent supportive housing, but that takes time. It can take 5 to 6 years to build something. Tiny homes presented a way for us to do something in a very short amount of time at a lot less cost. So I first found out about this tiny home project in Hayward, and that's why I asked Cheryl to come and be able to answer any questions that I can't. So it was a pilot between Homemade Northern California and First Presbyterian Church of Hayward. And it involves 6 tiny homes on the site of First Presbyterian. And you can read through the slides. I don't need to go through them really, but it can be done very quickly. This particular one was done in 6 weeks, and Homemade was instrumental in getting builders to donate time and materials in order to reduce the cost. And then there was the First Presbyterian was able to connect the homes using their on-site facilities. And the tiny homes were also built off-site and delivered. So it's a very cost-effective and fast way to build housing, temporary housing. And we loved it so much, our committee, that we talked with Cheryl about, well, if we find a site, can we do something like this? So we've talked with the pastor at First Presbyterian, and he's willing to help. They've got a great program that we'd like to model. And so we've spent the last few months putting together a presentation, putting together a letter that's ready to go out to the faith-based communities, to see if we can find a site. If we find more than one, that'd be terrific. But our focus, of course, because we're Walnut Creek Task Force, is Walnut Creek. But we are not, we don't want to limit our outreach, simply because anything that could be built in a surrounding city is certainly going to reduce the homelessness in Walnut Creek and all of our cities, for all of us. So if we find a site in Concord or Pittsburgh or somewhere else, that's great. Let me move real quick to the end of this slide. So if we find a site, we've put together a letter which introduces the program. We put together a few slides, and we've put together, with Cheryl's help, the PDFs of the units themselves. If we find a site, then it's a matter of working with that site and that faith-based community to look at how we might finance it, look at how we might permit it, look at how we might provide the support services through the different agencies. So right now we're just doing a fact finding to see if we can find another site. And our ask of you is to help us promote this project and help us send out our letter. If this is something that you would like to participate in. So tiny homes can be any size, right, Cheryl? So I think there's another project that's going on that is 28 homes. This particular one was 6 tiny homes, which could house up to 12 individuals. And it's temporary. So they have about 18 months. And the money, they do pay small rent, so these are working homeless. And the half of the rent goes towards utilities, et cetera, for the church or whatever organization. And then half of it goes into a reserve account so that at the end, when they find permanent supportive housing or other types of housing, then they can apply that to their rent deposits and utilities. So it's kind of a Christmas club, if you will. So we love this program, and Cheryl indicated the last time we chatted that they have already had 2 people from the Hayward site find more permanent housing. So
Are these fully contained unit, self-contained, so that with bathrooms and shower and
Yes.
kitchen?
Yes,
yes, they
fully
consist-
independent.
Okay. And do you help with the permitting, getting the city to approve? And also, I mean, I can imagine that there's a lot of pushback from the city.
Well, not as much as you would think. So I can
good.
only speak to Walnut Creek, but I did some initial touching base with the city, the senior planner and the building official, and also the housing manager. If we found a site, and I was told by the chief building official, Frank Kong, Donna, find me a site, bring me a plan, and we will talk. So they recognize that there's a significant emergency here, that COVID is causing and will cause even more homelessness, pending evictions, et cetera. And this is
Okay.
temporary. It's not meant to replace building more permanent housing, but that takes 5 to 6 years and $20+ million. So what can we do in the meantime? I was told by Walnut Creek, bring me a plan, we'll look at it. They will fund, if possible, if they have the money, up to 25% of that, of the costs. And then they would help us with outreach to other sources that we could apply for.
And
So-
who provides the supportive services?
So the supportive services, that's another thing. It appears that Hayward is providing that in their community, within their community, but we have such great agencies like Hope Solutions, Trinity Center, services through the county that we would need to partner with and help them set that up. So we're looking at the task force as being able, along with Homemade Northern California's help, and First Presbyterian, because they're willing to provide guidance and ideas, et cetera.
Donna, can you take down your slide,
yeah.
please, so that I can see people? Or we can all see each other.
Sure.
Thanks.
And I'll send you this this slide deck so you can send it out. I thought I did, but
I thought I sent 2 of the 3 documents, I thought, but I didn't want to
Okay.
send everything.
so I did ask Cheryl to come because I felt that if you had more technical questions, she would be the one to answer them rather than me. But our whole goal is to get the information out to the faith-based communities to say, we're looking for a site. We want to have a conversation with you. If you're at all interested, we want to have a conversation, make a detailed presentation. And if there's more interest, we'll go from there.
And if I could
Is
just
there a-
follow up on that, Donna, just for one quick second.
Yeah.
So it's Cheryl O'Connor from Homemade. And like Donna was mentioning, the pilot program we completed in February of this year. And since then, the concept has taken off. We're working on 5 more projects right now. We're finishing up Crosswinds Church in Livermore. We're going to build 28. We're doing 28 tiny homes there. And that'll be done by February. So every day, more and more cities keep approaching us to try to say, can't we replicate this at a church in our city? So it's really, really, and it's not the solution, it's a solution. We're building a shelter right now for Bay Area Rescue Mission, in Richmond. That took 6 years to get.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to house quite a few women and children, but it's also a $4 million project. The tiny homes are just another way to provide housing, like Donna mentioned, on a transitional or semi-permanent sort of housing as maybe as the church like First Pres is actually processing to try to build permanent supportive with Eden Housing, but it's going to take another 5 years to get there. So in the meantime, we can have these people living in the homes and then moving on to permanent supportive as they, get their rent paid back to them, which is pretty cool.
Which is fabulous, if we had kind of thought this way at St. Paul's Commons, it took how long to build that? What if we had been able to do the tiny homes in the meantime? I just think it would have been a great temporary solution. And this offers a way to do it. There's, I think what the committee, the task force is willing to do is help research the funding, help support any faith-based organization that wants to explore it and make those connections with organizations like Homemade and then First Presbyterian who's doing it.
It's a foundation that it could be moved to another faith congregation, or is it, once it's there, it's there? The structure.
Cheryl, you know more about that part.
Yeah, it can be moved. It's actually because every jurisdiction is different, which is the only complicated thing about anything related to housing. But the project we did with the 6 tiny homes is in the county of Hayward. The county of Hayward required that they be on foundations. So we put foundations in with community development block grant money, but the homes can be lifted up off the foundation and, taken to another site. The project we're doing in Crosswinds, they're movable tiny homes. So they're on wheels. So you can actually move them. There's the project we're trying to do in Vallejo. They want actually the people to be able to live in them and then buy them or be given to them so they could drive away and live someplace else in their little tiny house on wheels.
Cool.
So there's a lot of alternatives, and I think it just depends on the organization that we can reach out to and explore these options with.
This is really exciting because it's been something I've been trying to do since I worked at H3 or with H3. And I'd be very happy. Donna and Cheryl, I wrote down your names and got the email, but I'm connected with the city council in Pleasant Hill and Martinez. And I have someone living on site in a tiny home. We've just chosen here to do it in RVs. So he's got an RV and I'm planning on bringing in a travel trailer for a second homeless person. We've got electrical and water hookups that we've installed and we're working on sewer. So I could probably put you, this is almost amazing. It's almost, I think what you're doing is key and something that we've all been looking for. And we just need to get you guys connected with the right.
Oh, glad to hear it. The Episcopal Church in Martinez, Deb White, they're looking to build permanent, but this could be, maybe we could do something with tiny homes until they build their permanent housing.
Yeah, and they've got that upper gravel lot. She had offered for me to do what I was calling a nomadic community up there at one point. So they're really open. There's others as well, but I think our local city councils could be open to it. Jamie probably knows somebody that's more in touch with that by far than I am, but I don't think it would be that hard to move this into Contra Costa. As a matter of fact, I think this is an answer we've been looking for. Yeah.
Joe, I think you had a question, Joe?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the utilities. If the homes are not permanent, how do you manage that?
And the Hayward site, they're connected to the church utilities, and we're trying to do that on all the other sites also. If PG&E is going to require us to get additional service, that's where the cost comes in, obviously. So I'm trying to work with PG&E to say, can't you please develop a tiny home program? There's and they said, okay. There's also a company in Mendocino County, it's called Soul Solutions, where you can buy a trailer that's basically solar panels to be off the grid. And so some of the RVs that'll work for, or you could do a couple tiny houses connected to a trailer. So it's all these possibilities. And so that's what we're trying to do, is what fits with that particular church site, parking lot, whatever it happens to be, and how can we make it work?
And that's what I really liked about their program, is it can be sized. It can be small, it can be larger, it can be fancy, it can be, just basic. So that's what I really, really liked about the program.
Yeah, and I know that I've done a lot of research in this. Electricity is almost no issue until you're talking like a heater, because the solar technology is so affordable and well done now. I think, and then we've encountered some people that service porta potties in cities that are willing to do that in RVs as well. drive up and service them direct. So there's a lot of ways around this stuff, a lot of ways.
We just need interested parties to say, yeah, come talk to us.
Doug?
Okay, I think we need to move on. I think
Yeah, so-
Hector raised his hand too.
Well,
So,
let's spend a little bit more time. Doug?
so Donna asked if we would be willing to help spread the word, and
Yes.
beyond the individual expressions that we've already had from Scott and others, I think that Multi-Faith Action Coalition collectively can help spread the word. This is really kind of up our alley in a way, because a few years ago at one of our August Action events, we actually focused on trying to encourage faith communities to think about developing housing on their properties, and lifted up Trinity Commons as an example of how churches could do this. Anyway, what we could do is put out an e-blast. If you have a letter explaining what you're looking for, asking for faith communities that might be interested, we could put that out to our email list.
Great.
And get that out if of course this task force supports that.
Well, you have the letter. So if your task force votes for it, it's something that could be easily modified in some way if you wish.
And is there any other way that the Multi-Faith Action Coalition could help spread the word that you're thinking of just at the moment, spreading this letter around?
Yeah, I would think you get enough responses, you could do a webinar where everyone, you could, instead of going to each one, you could, group them all together. I just have a question for Cheryl on, I understand they're being built off site. So who's building them and where is that happening at the moment? Is it more than one
A couple
place?
different ways. So the 6 that we built for Hayward, we built them at Crosswinds Church in what we called a pop-up factory, because making it a pop-up factory made it an off-site build. It's because, so then the plan was approved through the state, through HCD, as opposed through each city individually. So it expedites the process in terms of getting the plan approved, and then also for all the inspections that happen along the way. So in the case of the 6 tiny homes, we asked our home builders to help us, and we had 6 home builders step up to help
For
last
6
September. 6. That's not typical. Usually it's 1, but anyway, it was Pulte and everybody. So they all stepped up and they built the 6 homes in 6 weeks and 6 builders, and they got all the costs donated, which is unusual to have all the costs donated. But it was.
And we can't promise that will happen again.
No, but the idea is that it can be done. It's easy to do. Smaller house, people get how to do it. One of the things I just have to mention too, First Pres had contacted us because they thought that they were going to have all these churches adopt one house and build it, and that didn't work out because nobody really could do that. They didn't have the capacity or the knowledge or whatever to build a house. So the nice thing about HomeAid is we bring all the professional builders and their trade partners to the project, and then we could get it done really quickly and make sure it's built to code, of course. But then also take the plan like we did now and make it even better, so it's more efficient going forward. And now we've got a accessible unit also, so that we can take these same plans and replicate them and with a different elevation depending on where the site is and so it matches the neighborhood.
Besides cities, I assume you have private and public funding. Is there a good, are you have access to good state funding? Is there some legislation we should be supporting?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of
scales
options.
up,
there's lots of options in there, and it takes a lot of work to put that together. And again, that's something that if we have an organization that's interested in, then we can apply for state funding, we can apply for city funding, we can apply for housing vouchers. Jamie, if there are any, you could help direct us there. CDBG funds, possibly for infrastructure and other private investors. I know of a few private investors that I want to knock on their doors. And then of course there's the usual faith-based fundraising activities. So we don't have like Cheryl said, it's lots of opportunities. And it would take some work, and that's where our committee would provide
Okay.
those resources.
All righty. Well, we really appreciate the presentation. We've been waiting for Donna to move on her next venture. It's very exciting.
Well,
She
before
makes
we
things
move
happen.
on, then maybe we should take a vote. Is this something that we as a task force want to support? And then,
Christoph, sorry to interrupt. I raised my hand on the chat and I just had a couple of questions. Would it be okay for me to ask them now?
yeah,
Mr.
absolutely.
Sector, I don't see you.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry about that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sure, go ahead.
I guess I was. This sounds like this is very interesting, and I agree. The sense of urgency in terms of folks on the street and sheltering in place, I think, has really highlighted the need. I guess I just had some questions. I get one question that I had was, how long do people typically stay in tiny homes? And that's just a question, like if it's a part of like a program, like is it a timed program, like people have 2 years to be in tiny homes before they are timed out so they can go find their own homes, or do they stay there as long as they, want until, they get back on their feet? Like, I guess that's one
Yeah, so
question.
that's something, again, I think that we would work out with the organization, that the church or congregation that wanted to do this, but the one in Hayward is 18 months.
Okay, I see. Great. And then I guess the other question that I have is regarding, tenant protections and, all that, everything that's been going on the legislative level at the state and also in Contra Costa. What do tiny homes, I guess, qualify for, or what have they been, put under? Are they mobile homes? Are they like apartment? Like, how would you qualify them? So that I guess we could know maybe if there's any gaps in the legislative level at the state, and maybe we need to advocate for tiny homes to be included if they're not already.
If I can answer that, it could be all of the above. I mean, honestly, when the 6 tiny homes we did at Hayward were built to HCD standards, like I said, and the ones at Crosswinds are RVs. When I got into the tiny home world, I decided to, become more learned about it, educated. And so I connected with the American Tiny Home Building Association in Fresno. And I realized that there's so many different, there's manufactured, there's mobile, there's RVs, there's homes built to HCD standards, homes built to HUD standards. And it's complex. And so it all depends on what the certain jurisdiction wants or will allow. And then how does the tiny home concept fit into that? The other thing, like Donna had mentioned too on the task force, is accessory dwelling units. Tiny homes are perfect for accessory dwelling units. And so now you're seeing more and more cities, including Oakland, LA, San Diego, adopting movable tiny homes as an option for an accessory dwelling unit. So it's another way to provide additional housing units at a less of a cost than building an on-site, very expensive accessory dwelling unit in your backyard. So it's kind of, and there's also 3D printed homes. There's a lot of the, built in a factory. I mean, there's lots of different opportunities and options depending on what the jurisdiction will allow.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so then let's take a vote because we got to move on. I assume, this should be a no-brainer for us, but is anybody opposed for us to support this? So moved. Anybody second? Mark?
Second.
All right. Okay, so now I think then Doug can take it to the steering committee, right?
Well, yes, except that, the letter that we had in our attachments for this is specific to Walnut Creek. And if we're going to put it out to a Contra Costa wide audience, it should be modified to be for a Contra Costa audience rather than a Walnut Creek audience.
Okay. All right.
Agree.
We got to move on. And I think, Leslie, you're on for 12:30. So we're only 8 minutes behind your time slot.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being here and opening our eyes to this.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
I didn't realize I had a time slot. Is it my point already for updates?
Yes, I was told by Jane, that 12:30 would work well for you, so that's why. I put it
Oh,
down.
oh, sure, or whatever. I'm on now. Finish the other meeting. I'm good.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, Hector, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. And sorry for I haven't been able to fix my computer, but so I guess a couple of updates. There's been a lot of advocating in Concord for a rent registry. The Raise the Roof Coalition and other organizations part of it have been doing some research about rent registries across the state, and it's basically a renter or a landlord rents a property, has to register certain key facts into a city database. And last week on Wednesday, we were advocating for what kinds of things are collected, what kind of information is collected, to not only make it a useful tool to maybe understand like what the landscape is of tenants and landlords in Contra Costa, which currently, without a rent registry, there really isn't a tool that can help us find that and like understand patterns and rent gaps. But also, I think over time, right now we might not see necessarily the impacts of having a rent registry, but in like a year or two, we might be able to get some good data as to, what are some of the landlords that have maybe raised rent, and that violates the AB 1482, which only allows landlords to raise rent once a year, for instance. And also understand, what are the turnover rates in certain parts of Concord, and, where are some of the biggest disparities when it comes to eviction. That way there can be a more targeted and really data-centered like policy making that comes from that. And that I think was successful. But without any real state protections, any rent registry or tool that we advocate for won't be as effective. So last week, as I don't know if you folks know about AB 3088, is the current, state's protections against eviction related to no payment of rent due to COVID will sunset in the end of January. So folks right now from, I believe it's September, have to pay 25% of their total rent from September to January. So if they're not able to pay any rent, they just have to pay a quarter of it. The rest of that will be converted into consumer debt, which then the landlords can take them to civil court to set up some kind of plan or what have you. But with these protections ending, and there being really the only protections that are sort of like the law of the land regarding this specific type of eviction, there are a lot of loopholes in AB 3088. Folks can still be evicted for other reasons other than lack of payment of rent. And there's also a lot of that we've seen across the state, like abuse from landlords where, landlords will add conditions to a declaration that a tenant has to sign so that they can prove that they are not able to pay the rent. And that's something that they have to do monthly. And the landlord might add a condition that's not actually legal. And it might screw over the tenant. So with these protections sunsetting in January, Assemblymember David Chu last week introduced two bills, Assembly AB 15, I think, and AB 16. It might be AB 14, AB 15, but I get the numbers mixed up. AB 15 is a bill to extend AB 3088, and AB 16 is a placeholder bill that essentially will be used as a way to strengthen AB 38 down the line. But this is a really weird time to be advocating for anything on the legislature because it's not a typical time for things to be passed. We're going to enter, the holiday period, and folks, it's not a normal time. So right now, a lot of housing advocates and our housing coalition known as Housing Now have been organizing around, getting these passed, or at the very least getting AB 15 passed, which is the extension, which we really, really need. So again, this last week, we were on a call with Assemblymember Grayson, trying to get some support from him. And there are other calls happening between now and January where folks that represent Contra Costa will be calling them, and we'll be sharing, what are the experiences on the ground and why this is really, really necessary. So I can send all of the information about these two bills and also some upcoming actions regarding its advocacy and making sure that, if MFAC or other folks on this call would be interested in participating in that advocacy, there's many opportunities, whether it's a tweet storm to the governor or whether it's signing onto a letter or joining in one of those lobby visits that are scheduled already. So I think that's it for me. And if folks have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, please share the action items. I think that's, things that can be done, email campaigns or signatures or something like that. I totally agree. I think this is really critical. This has to go way beyond January. I mean, people with the spike we've seen, I can't even imagine how bad it's going to be. So otherwise, it's going to be just horrendous. Totally bad as it is. So yeah, if you have that, please share it so we can include it. Joan can include it in the minutes.
Will do.
Mark?
I was just going to ask, is there a realistic possibility that this bill can get passed by the end of January?
I would hope so, yes. I think that's the whole reason why we're all advocating, so that we can get people to push it forward and pass it.
Okay.
I can share this with our social justice committee as well. So that's why I'm saying, if you have an action item, please share with us. Doug.
So if that's true, first of all, I have my doubts that the legislature could pass anything by the end of January, but maybe. So if Hector is asking if we could support this, we would normally need more time for that. But I would propose, if the task force is agreeable and would recommend that the steering committee take a look at this, we could do that with the provision that we wouldn't put it to a steering committee vote without having the kind of documentation that Hector was just saying that he could send us. So if the task force wants to go ahead and recommend it anyway, even though we haven't seen the documentation, that would be fine with me.
Anybody opposed to that suggestion?
No, I think we need to do it.
Okay, I think you just got everybody's approval there, Doug.
Okay,
Yes,
so Hector, you're on the hook for sending us some background.
Of course, I'll make sure to send all that today.
Great.
All right, fantastic. I'm glad.
Oh, and by the way,
joined us.
And
Yes.
by the way, the numbers you gave the first time are correct, 15 and 16. I wrote those down from a call that I was on last week, and at least whoever said it on that call had the same numbers that you gave.
Great. Yeah, I
16.
get confused with all the AB numbers, so sorry about that. But thanks, Doug, for confirming.
All right. We don't have Shelter Inc. or Winter Nights represented, so let's move on with Trinity Center and Leslie.
All right. Hello, everybody. It's great to see your faces. Just a quick update. We're moving along. Evening program is set to start January, I want to say 11. And we're working with our members now to identify who will be there. For evening program this year, we'll have far fewer slots as we put everybody in individual tents with plenty of social distancing. So we won't be able to serve as many people this year at one time anyway, but thankfully the hotels will be able to stay open. And so our most vulnerable people who have been in the hotels from the beginning will still have a safe place to be over the winter. So we'll be able to help that kind of next tier, or the group of people who probably should be in the hotels, but there's not enough space yet. And we're getting underway with that. A couple of our staff from last year are coming on to be co-coordinators. So we're really excited to get that underway. And at this point, it's scheduled to go through April 9th. So a full 13 weeks. And then more or less, depending on, although our usual agreement with the Armory is only as late as April 15th. Safe parking, I wish the news were as good about that. Although we had been able to gather some additional funding for it. Thank you very much. COVID means that the church is not available to us to use for the parking lot and the restrooms. So we still can't safely open up safe parking, although everywhere I go, and I'm asking you all too, everywhere I go, if anybody knows of another place that we could approach where someone could, they'd be willing to let us park and use the bathrooms overnight, we can pop that thing up in a heartbeat. All we need is our security company. We have all the, procedures and paperwork ready to go. We just need a space. So I see you're talking. Jan, do you have a question?
No wonder Christoph can't hear me. What about a porta potty?
We've thought about that too. We have thought about that. That would be our last resort, but yeah. So depending on who ends up in the winter shelter, we still may try to do something like that. So we're not ruling anything out. And, depending on where it is, it would depend on what sort of permitting or special accommodations we might need, but that's a great idea. But, if anybody has an inside scoop on a place that it might work, that would be great. Thank you very much. And then we are really looking forward to all of our holiday events. We had a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving meal the day before Thanksgiving, sponsored by St. Anselm's and catered by Slow Hand Barbecue, and they were awesome. We're going to be doing the same. We have our annual holiday gift giving, which will be a gift card giving party this year coming up at the end of the week. And then we have our traditional Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve meals coming up as well. So even in the middle of all of this, and even with people needing to eat their festive meals outside, luckily the day before Thanksgiving was a beautiful sunny day. Hopefully the same will be true for the next couple of Thursday lunches. So everybody's hanging in there. We're trying to keep spirits up and know that people have a place to be still. And we're just doing what we always did, which even though we're back in purple tier, we had been operating under even worse circumstances before. So we're just continuing to do what we do. We had an audit, like an assessment of what we're doing by the county health engineer or environmental health engineers. And she felt like we're doing a really good job at keeping each other safe. So we're really proud of that. And we're just keeping on keeping on. That's kind of where we're at.
Perfect.
Hey,
Mark?
Hi.
Leslie, I was just curious why the program, the winter shelter, starting in January instead of the normal time in December?
Couple of reasons. One, it's going to be more costly to operate this year. So we had to scale back some of the dates. Two, we felt like, we knew we had to scale back some of the dates, and history from the past years is that usage was limited in December, and then it would tick up by January, February, March, and people really wanted to be able to stay as long as possible into April. So we took that into account too, and figured if we have to scale it back a little, that's more in line with what people have shown they need by their behavior over the years. And then frankly, also it took us a while with everything else going on to get ourselves organized, get people in place, go through all the procedures. So that's why. But we do have resources, thanks to the county and other donors, that if the weather gets really, really dicey, we can probably do some sort of short-term arrangements for people so that they are, really not facing the worst of the weather before the shelter opens. That would be on a very individualized basis.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for
Christoph?
Yes.
Can I ask that those who are able maybe stay an extra 5 or 10 minutes if you need to go? Please feel free to do so. But let's move to Carrie and try and get some of these in, then I'll mail some and we'll get through as many as we can.
Yep. And Joan, I'll put this in writing for you. Sorry, I didn't do it in advance.
Carrie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Nice to see everyone today. I was a little late. It was at a racial justice training that our team is doing. So I do apologize for being late, but really excited to share that our Spirit of Giving program, holiday giving program, that many of you and your congregations have supported. We've basically matched all of our people. So we're really grateful for that. And we're getting all of our gifts out to our families right now. So it's an exciting time of year for that to happen. And just very grateful that we can continue to complete this program for everyone who's interested in participating, which we couldn't do without you guys. So in our communities. So that is something I wanted to mention. Also, we're housing a lot of people this next month. And so we are very much in need of bedding and beds. We're in need of several full and twin size beds. The furnishing list, which I just got this morning, has been updated, and I'll have it on our website. And I, of course, will make sure that Jana has a copy to share out as well. There's some other items on there too. And then the other thing that I will mention, just in the spirit of giving and sort of launching into our annual fundraising event, we want to just continue to get the word out about our Ruby Slippers Gala. We're obviously virtual this year on February 27th. It is a free event this year. So we're really excited that everyone can attend who would like to. And right now, just to continue in supporting that effort, if people didn't get to participate in Spirit of Giving, or you're looking for another way to contribute to us, we have we're collecting silent auction donations right now and just getting people registered for the event. It's free, but we want people to make sure that they're signed up for it. So those are a couple quick updates from us. Homework Club is coming along well. It is challenging being virtual, but there's always opportunity for additional Homework Club support. So if you know of anyone who's interested, we always need additional help. In East County, I'm aware that we are looking for at least one more person. So it is virtual, and we can get you oriented, or whomever is interested oriented. And last but not least, I want to mention that we still have a need with all of our moving that happens with delivering furniture, just to help getting things from place A to B, to pick up donated furniture and get them out to our households where our families and individuals are being housed. We're not having their porch deliveries only, so our social distancing practices are in place, and making sure that we're being safe there. Those are the big updates right now. I just wanted to keep them brief. I know there's a long agenda, but let me know if you have any questions, and just know that I'll send the updated list of furnishings and volunteer opportunities to Jan to share out with you all.
Well, Carrie, did I hear you correctly? You need physical help actually delivering furniture as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Joan, I'm sorry, Christoph, I'm going to jump around here. Were you able to come up with a report for Catholic Charities this time?
Yeah, very briefly.
Okay.
The Catholic Charities of the East Bay Program Committee now has a community member. Her name is Arisa Pedzewick, and her background is in education. She was involved in support for housing for many years, 10 years or so. And she joined us at our last meeting on December 5th, and she'll be taking part in our discussions about our program and ways we can help out with distribution of funds, and also some of the development we're still doing with the program definitions and activities.
Any specific ask?
Not at this point.
Okay.
It seems like we're kind of and I joined kind of with a very brief description of the fact that we're kind of reorganizing. So we're bringing on quite a number of new members on the program committee and trying to define the difference between our work and the overall, plan, advisory committee, et cetera.
Okay, great. I just wanted to mention really quickly that about 8 of us met with Hector Galveo with the nonprofit housing. I had a really good discussion with him about legislation.
Pedro Galvao.
Pedro Galvao.
You said Hector. It's Pedro.
Oh.
Thank you, Doug. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, so we're trying to hit the ground early on meeting our legislators and coming up with the program. And we've got Don Stump, who's retired president or CEO of Christian Church Homes. He has lots of contacts with bishops and the different denominations, having worked in the nonprofit housing for seniors for years. And so we're going to make a real push this year to get a stronger database and connection with faith groups and get more people in your congregations to actually support more housing, more affordable housing. And we're going to be looking for stories and people impacted who can share their stories and go to our legislators and say, this is what worked. This person got in housing last year, and we need more of this. And we have people waiting for housing, and make it not so much up against just the things we've been against, but try and convince them and show the really strong support from the faith community. So we're going to be setting up some meetings for January, and we'll keep you posted on all of that work as we work behind the scenes. And Doug, quick from you then. Sorry for the rush, but.
You're turning to me for the.
You wanted to be down for AB 71? Statewide homeless.
Yes, thank you. I
solutions?
didn't see that on the agenda, so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so AB 71, Assembly Bill 71, a separate email Jan sent out after she sent out the agenda included my request to add this to the agenda. And it is a new bill just introduced into the legislature a week ago today. And that, because that's the first day of the legislative session, and that's the first day it's possible to introduce new bills. Anyway, this bill should be a slam dunk for this task force, because this task force already approved and recommended to the steering committee, and the steering committee approved that recommendation, by the way, that Multi-Faith Action Coalition support the Bring California Home campaign. And that support has been registered with the Bring California Home campaign. So we're already on the books publicly supporting the Bring California campaign. And what this AB 71 bill is it's a legislative bill to say the legislature intends to pass legislation to implement the intentions of the Bring California campaign, Bring California Home campaign. This bill, AB 71, doesn't actually do it. I think it's what you would call a spot bill, in that it just records for the legislature the intent to do more things to make this happen. And so since we already agreed to support the Bring California Home campaign, and this is just a legislative way of saying we're working on it, we should support this too. So I'm moving that this task force recommends to the steering committee that Multi-Faith Action Coalition also support AB 71.
Questions for Doug? Or
I've never heard of a bill that just says we intend to do something about this, but doesn't actually do anything about it.
Yeah, I said something similar a couple of years ago when I first heard it too, but that's apparently this happens all the time.
Wow, interesting. Well, I would certainly support this. I mean, like you said, we're already on board for this Bring California Home initiative.
So that sounds like a second.
That is a second. I'll be the official seconder of our group.
Thank you. Way to go, Mark. All right.
Is someone
Everybody in favor of supporting AB 71?
Yeah. Okay, so
right,
we'll take that to the steering committee too.
Let's put housing, get the housing for people out there this 2021 in all manner, form that we can. And appreciate all the excitement today and the we can do it. You know, we can make a real difference this next year. We won't be sidelined by all these other things. I appreciate y'all staying a few extra minutes. And like I say, I'll send reports out for, except I don't have one from Shelter Inc., but I can send out stuff.
What about Winter Nights? Do we have anything with Winter Nights?
We do, but I'll send it out. We're
Okay.
over our time. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, well, we meet in January 11th.
So
Stay
you
in
say we're-
touch.
You say we're over our time. This meeting has traditionally gone till 1:30.
Oh,
The agenda.
boy, I am really out to lunch today, aren't I? Gee
There's no
Louise.
reason why we need to go to 1:30 today, but I'm just saying, I didn't think it was over our time.
Yeah, I was wondering too, Jane. I thought, well, my goodness.
Well, you know,
You know, Jan, one too many Zooms and this is like, you know.
yeah, I guess that's it, coming from a, well, guess what? We're gonna leave early and I'm gonna send you the info, so enjoy.
If you can
Sounds
hold
like
on
it.
to the chats, then I can write them, any information into the notes, because I think last month,
We
We
didn't get
lost-
them.
yeah, we lost the chat.
All right, I'll copy them. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the other stuff is from people who aren't here, except for me, and well, there's not much in the chat, but we'll
No,
copy.
no, I think it's the chat today didn't had a lot of information in there.
Oh,
Some
I
of us
noticed-
cannot keep up with much of anything lately, but
Doug,
But I noticed one thing in the chat is relevant to what we were just talking about with Mark about that spot bill. Hector put into the chat, this is similar to AB 16. And I think he's referring to the fact that AB 16 is also a spot bill, also
really?
an intent for more legislation. Yeah. And Hector said so much. I don't think he used that terminology, but he said it as he was introducing that.
Do we really know if it's Hector though? I mean.
that's him. Look at him. Look, he just put his thumb up. Somebody quick get an ink pad out.
Is it his thumb? I don't know.
And I remembered that where I had written this down before, AB 15 and 16 was in that meeting we had last week with Pedro Belvao, Jan. Pedro mentioned both of those bills.
Well, your brain is better than mine. Thank you.
Oh, my notepad was better than yours.
Oh, well, I probably took the note, but then I moved on.
Jan, it sounds like your brain's already ready for the holidays, huh?
No, I've got a big week with the Air District, 3 meetings this week. So no, I'm not going anywhere for another week. But then after next week, yes.
Doug, I have a question.
Sure.
I read my notes and can't understand myself. So can you repeat what this bill is intending to do? I didn't finish the sentence when I was taking the notes.
Which one, Doug's?
AB 71 that Doug was just discussing.
I'll send you something.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Or I'll actually read some of the attachments, which I did, but then of course, can't remember.
Yeah, we're all kind of in the same
Okay,
boat here.
thank you.
all right, well, then
Life is good.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Here's to a better next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
Here,
no
here.
kidding.
no kidding. Yeah, absolutely.
Celebration on Inauguration Day.
Oh, yeah.
That too.
Yeah.
All righty, we'll see what we can do to help you with that stuff, Carrie.
Okay,
Yes,
happy
enjoy
holidays.
to everybody.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for joining
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye now.
Jan, I have one other question.
Okay,
Oh, she's still here. Joe, can you give me her last name so I can include her on our,
Kerner, Kerner. She's on the list.
thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Joe.
She's a part of, she joined our parish too, Joan.
Oh, great. Well,
Yeah.
you can-
Well,
She's
hey,
usually at the 11:30 Zoom liturgy, right, Joe?
good. Good to see you.
well, glad people can move around. Stay
Joe.
connected somewhere.
Joe, since I have you live, I wanted to ask you, would you be interested in being one of the petition readers?
Who are you asking?
You're muted.
Joe,
Yeah, I can't hear you.
she can't, I guess she can't unmute herself. Just put your thumb up. Oh, wait a minute, she found it.
Okay, yes, of course, Christoph.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Because
we're witnesses to that, Joe.
we'd like to get a variety of different voices going. Okay, perfect. I'll be in touch then. All righty.
Okay,
Thanks,
Ronnie, thanks for
everybody.
being with us, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.